event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The Chief of the National People's Army, Army General Said Shingriha, took part in the opening ceremony of the 8th edition of the Doha International Maritime Defense Conference and Exhibition, DIMTAX 2024. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Mr. Ahmed Attaf, now on a visit to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, instructed by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, is participating to an extraordinary meeting of the Councils of the Foreign Affairs Minister of the member countries of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. As the U.S. urges for an immediate ceasefire, the Israeli army has continued its pounding of Gaza, notably of the southern towns of Khan Yunis and Rafah, killing 37 Palestinians over the past 24 hours. The Chief of Staff of the National People's Army, Army General Said Shingriha, took part in the opening ceremony of the 8th edition of the Doha International Maritime Defense Conference and Exhibition, DIMTAX 2024, following the meeting with Lieutenant General, Chief of Staff of the Qatari Armed Forces, Salim bin Hamad al-Nabit. Mr. Shingriha said the following.
This visit follows the visit I made to Qatar in 2022 and the one you paid to Algeria last year. It is a new opportunity to work together, to meet the aspirations of our two countries and to build a multidimensional military cooperation that will benefit our respective armies, notably the exchange of experience and professional practices in the fields of security and defense. I would like to conclude by assuring you once again of our readiness within the National People's Army and to move forward alongside our brothers in the Qatari Armed Forces on the path of strengthening the ties of cooperation within the framework of the multidimensional convergence that our two countries are witnessing.
For his part, the Chief of Staff of the Qatari Armed Forces, Salim bin Hamad al-Nabit, had this to say.
I thank the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune for his support for our army, notably in training and the Algerian expertise in several fields.
Let's note in that following the meeting, the two sides have exchanged symbolic gifts. Now, the Speaker of the People National Assembly, Brahim Boughali, has met in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, the President of the Shura Council of the Sultanate of Oman, Sheikh Khalid bin Hilal bin Nasser al-Maouli. Mariam Barshi has the details.
The meeting took place on the sidelines of the proceedings of the 18th Conference of the Parliamentary Union of the Member States of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The two parties reviewed the situation in occupied Palestine, as well as the daily suffering of the Palestinian people following the barbaric violations committed by the Israeli settlers against the civilian population for nearly 5 months. The two parties agreed on the need to put in place a legal mechanism at interparliamentary union level, which will hold its meetings in the coming days, with the aim to sanction the Israeli occupying authorities, forcing it to leave the Gaza Strip and to put an end to the genocide. Mr. Boughali and the Omani President of the Shura Council affirmed that condemnations were pointless in the face of this despicable aggression because oppression has reached its peak.
The 12th meeting of the Executive Committee of the Association of the African Anti-Corruption Authorities in Africa has started here in Algiers. The two-day meeting is organized by the High Authority for Transparency, Prevention and the Fight Against Corruption. It is aimed at strengthening coordination and intensifying cooperation among African countries in the fight against corruption. The meeting is part of Algeria's efforts to prevent and combat corruption at national and international levels as a member of the association's executive committee representing the North African region. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arqab, has received in Algiers the head of the specialized Algerian-Chinese Working Group for Cooperation in the Field of Nuclear Industry, the Vice President of the China National Nuclear Corporation, CNNC, Shen Yangfen, in the presence of the Commissioner for Atomic Energy and senior officials from the Ministry and the Atomic Energy Commission, Qarshi again.
The talks between the two parties focused on the state of cooperation relations between Comena and the Chinese company CNNC in the field of nuclear energy and its active and passive uses for peaceful purposes, as well as its development prospects. The two parties also discussed issues relating to the development of cooperation, in particular the ongoing discussions within the specialized Algerian-Chinese Working Group for cooperation in the nuclear industry, such as those relating to the production of radioisotopes in Algeria, as well as the definition of national needs in terms of medical use of nuclear techniques and applications. In this connection, Mr. Yangfen stressed Algeria's capacity and readiness to carry out the project for the production of radioisotopes in Algeria, giving the skills and expertise that Algeria possesses. Mr. Arqab expressed his satisfaction about the state of the joint cooperation, particularly in terms of the progress made in the production of radioisotopes in Algeria.
The Sonatrach Group and its Chinese partners, Sinopec, have signed protocol agreement and expressed their will to consolidate their relations and to extend their cooperation through new partnership opportunities in the field of hydrocarbons exploration and exploitation. The Minister of Communication, Mohamed Lagab, has received the Director General of the Arab States Broadcasting Union, Suleiman Abderrahim, here in Algiers as part of a working visit accompanied by the Director General of the Arab Center for Information and Program Exchange, Mohsen Karim Slimani. The meeting was an occasion to strengthen the cooperation and the coordination between Algeria and the ASBU, which possesses strong cooperation relations through radio, television and broadcasting institutions, as well as the Arab Center for Information and Program Exchange, which is based in Algiers, from active institutions in the various technical and executive committees of the ASBU. Algeria's permanent representative of the UN Office on International Organizations in Geneva, Rachid Beledhen, said the international community to put pressure in order to end the Zionist and Moroccan occupations of the Palestinian and Sahrawi territories respectively, insisting on their violations of human rights and international humanitarian law. Mr. Beledhen was speaking at the 55th session of the Human Rights Council. Mr. Beledhen evoked the situation in the Sahrawi occupied territories.
My country's delegation remains concerned about the systemic violations of human rights and international humanitarian law in the occupied Western Sahara. We called for the observation and documentation of the violations committed against the Sahrawi people. We call on the High Commissioner to send a mission to the region to investigate and submit a detailed report to the Council on these violations.
Speaking about the situation in the Palestinian territories, Mr. Beledhen said the following.
The Palestinian people are victims of war crimes and crimes against humanity and still face the risk of genocide. Some special reporters have warned that the crimes are aimed at exterminating the Palestinians through massacres, forced displacements and starvation. The international community needs to reject the politicization, selectively and double standards with regard to Palestine. In the interest of world peace, it must investigate, hold to account and exert pressure for a ceasefire and end the Israeli injustice and occupation of the Palestinian territories.
That was Algeria's permanent representative to the UN Office and International Organizations in Geneva, Rachid Beledhen. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, now on a visit to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, instructed by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, is participating to an extraordinary meeting of the Councils of the Foreign Affairs Ministers of the member countries of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. The proceedings of the extraordinary session are focusing on the development of the relentless Israeli aggression against the Gaza Strip, and the assessment of means likely to allow the organization to strengthen its efforts and to put pressure in order to actively contribute to put an end to genocidal war being waged on the Palestinian people. The participation of Mr. Attaf at the meeting will be an occasion to reaffirm the constant support of Algeria to the Palestinian cause and its immutable commitment to pursue its efforts and procedures aiming at getting the UN Security Council to assume its responsibilities towards the Palestinian people. Mr. Attaf met with the person in charge of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in the Libyan Government of National Unity, Mr. Taher al-Baour. Mr. Attaf also met with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Murat Nurtulu. As you followed in our top stories, as the US urges for an immediate ceasefire, the Israeli army has continued its pounding of Gaza, notably of the southern towns of Khan Yunis and Rafah, killing 97 Palestinians over the past 24 hours. Mariam Barshi.
Several other Palestinians were wounded in overnight bombardments targeting Rafah amid fighting raging in the devastated area. This has raised to over 30,600 the number of people killed since the Israeli army launched its operation on Gaza over 4 months ago. In this respect, US Vice President Kamala Harris expressed deep concerns at the disastrous situation in Gaza and urged for a ceasefire to be enforced rapidly in the territory. Earlier, the US Vice President described the situation in Gaza as inhumane, urged Israel to do more to significantly increase the flow of aid, saying that there is no excuse that useless restrictions are still imposed on the funneling of aid. This came as Algeria affirmed that the use by the US of its right of veto against a draft resolution it submitted to the UN Security Council calling for a ceasefire was totally unjustified and has rather increased the sufferings of the Palestinians. Addressing the 59th debate of the UN General Assembly devoted to the US veto, the representative of Algeria's permanent mission in New York, Ahmed Sahrawi, reiterated Algeria's commitment under the chairmanship of President Tebboune to support Palestine's full membership to the UN. He said that the draft resolution presented by Algeria in coordination with the Arab group was of vital importance, as it sets obvious objectives and translated the many ceasefire calls made by billions of people across the world. The situation in Gaza was described as catastrophic, unreasonable and shameful by the head of the UN General Assembly, Denis Francis, who expressed shock and consternation at the killing by the Israeli soldiers of scores of Palestinians who were waiting for food.
150 days of violence, breeding violence, despair, destruction, and devastation, and the dehumanization of people. Each day, this painful reality continues to entrench the feeling of frustration and disillusionment, especially by those caught in the crossfire, who look to the United Nations as a guarantor of the good. Each day that passes risks a deepening failure to meet our moral obligations and duties, and each life lost adds to the stain on our collective conscience. With resolve and urgency, let us therefore work much harder to immediately end this conflict and to lay down the foundations of a future where Israel and the state of Palestine can coexist peacefully. Two states living side by side in harmony, united by a single shared vision for a brighter, more hopeful destiny.
Addressing the UN Assembly's debate, Palestine's permanent representative at the UN, Riyad Mansour, called for sanctions to be taken against Israel for the war crimes perpetrated against the Palestinians.
This is what we are talking about, and that's why we are here today. Stopping the daily war crimes and crimes against humanity that are integral to this Israeli assault, and putting an end to the genocide underway. Israel has unleashed death against 2.3 million Palestinians under multiple forms: indiscriminate bombing, summary executions, disease, dehydration, and starvation. Starvation is not an unfortunate consequence of the war. It is one of the methods of war used by Israel. Israel is starving our people. The people besieged, bombarded, killed, and maimed and displaced.
Let's recall that the UN Security Council is holding informal discussions on the situation prevailing in the Gaza Strip.
Hi and welcome to our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. First in the news, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, and his Mozambican counterpart, Filipe Jacinto Nyusi, have co-chaired the signing ceremony of several cooperation agreements between the two countries. The cooperation agreements cover plant protection, plant quarantine, and animal health, as well as the energy sector and the mutual cancellation of visas for holders of diplomatic or service passports. A joint communiqué was also signed on the occasion of the working and friendship visit to Algeria by the President of the Republic of Mozambique. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has said in Algiers that the Gas Research Institute, GRI, part of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, GECF, inaugurated Thursday in Algiers, will make Algeria an international center for gas development and a valuable opportunity to revitalize and promote scientific research and management training, in addition to developing partnerships with research centers and universities in member countries and related centers. The inauguration ceremony of the headquarters, presided over by the minister, took place on the sidelines of the Forum's 7th summit, held from 29 February to 2nd March in Algiers. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has received the President of the Board of Directors of Gazprom, Special Representative of the President of the Russian Federation for cooperation with the Forum of Gas Exporting Countries, GECF, Viktor Zubkov, with whom he reviewed the state of cooperation and partnership relations between the two countries in the field of energy and mines and the prospects for their reinforcement. The two officials also reviewed the measures taken by Algeria for the holding of the 7th GECF Summit of Heads of State and Government, underlining the importance to strengthen dialogue and intensify consultations between the Forum's member countries. Global demand for natural gas is set to increase by 34%, and its contribution to the world energy mix will rise from 23% at present to 26% by 2050, according to the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, GECF, in its annual report, Global Gas Outlook 2050, presented on Friday in Algiers on the sidelines of the Forum's 7th Summit of Heads of State and Government. Natural gas is a versatile energy source that will remain indispensable for decades to come. By 2050, demand for natural gas is expected to grow by 34%, considerably increasing its share of the global energy mix from the current 23% to 26%, states a press release published by the GECF on its website on Friday. In more Algerian economic news, the National Energy Group Sonatrach has been awarded the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, GECF, Merit Prize for its active contribution to the development of the natural gas industry, according to a press release from the group. The award was presented Friday to the CEO of Sonatrach, Rashid Hashishi, on behalf of the group at a ceremony held at the Abdellatif Rahal International Conference Center at the end of the forum's extraordinary ministerial meeting in preparation for the 7th GECF summit held Saturday in Algiers. The Sonatrach Group and the Venezuelan oil company PDVSA have signed two memorandums of understanding in Algiers on the sidelines of the 7th Summit of Heads of State and Governments of the Gas Exporting Countries Forum, GECF. The first memorandum of understanding covers ways of strengthening and promoting cooperation between the two companies in the field of energy, notably in the exploration, exploitation and production of hydrocarbons, petrochemicals and maintenance in the oil and gas industry, said the CEO of Sonatrach, Rashid Hashishi, in a statement to the press. He added that the second memorandum provides for training in the field, revealing that the training of Venezuelan technicians and engineers will be provided for by the Algerian Petroleum Institute, part of Sonatrach. The Sonelgaz Group reached a record level in exports, estimated at more than 219 million euros in 2023, said the group's spokesman Khalil Hudna. This record figure was achieved thanks to exports of electricity and cutting-edge equipment made in Algeria by the group's specialized subsidiaries, but also thanks to professional training in gas and electricity for a number of employees and workers from African countries. And to wind up our program, the first edition of the National Catalogue of Local Agricultural Products has been presented in Algiers with 190 different agricultural products from different regions of the country. Drawn up in accordance with the methodology of the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO, the catalogue includes 98 products with their technical data sheets and 92 others identified and inventoried and waiting to be developed on the basis of their distinctive and specific signs, notably geographical indications and designations of origin, explained the authors of the catalogue at the presentation ceremony held at the headquarters of the National Institute of Agricultural Research, INRA. And with this we come to the end of our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. Take care and bye-bye for now.
This week we are commemorating the hero symbol of Algiers revolution, Larbi bin Mhidi. Next, a program to highlight the life and fight for freedom of this Algerian hero.
Hello and good to have you with us. Today we'll shed light on an important figure of our national liberation war, Larbi bin Mhidi. He was a prominent revolutionary leader during the National Liberation War that broke out in 1954 against the French colonial yoke. Larbi bin Mhidi was born sometime in 1923 in the village of El Kouahi in Ain Mlila, which was part of the Constantine department at the time. He attended a French school in Betna so that he could continue his studies. This is where he received his primary school certificate. The bin Mhidi family later moved to Biskra, where Larbi bin Mhidi began secondary school. In 1939, he joined the Algerian Muslim Scouts, where he became a group leader within a very short period of time. Bin Mhidi became a follower of Misal al-Hajj and was a member of al-Hajj's Algerian People's Party (PPA) during the World War II, rapidly obtaining significant responsibilities within the movement. Larbi bin Mhidi was arrested the following day after the Sétif uprising against the occupying French forces in May 1945. The uprising was suppressed through what is now known as the Sétif massacre. He was arrested in Biskra and imprisoned in the Koudiat prison in Constantine for 4 months. The massacres committed by the French army in Sétif, Guelma and Kharrada had completely shocked him. On the 15th of March 1946, bin Mhidi was released from prison due to an amnesty being granted to the majority of nationalists imprisoned for the 1945 riots. The PPA was disbanded following the 1945 Sétif riots and was replaced in October 1946 by the for Democratic Liberties, also headed by Misal al-Hajj. In 1950, Ben Mhidi had been convicted in absentia and sentenced to 10 years in prison by the French at the time. Ben Mhidi and 8 other members of his movement soon grew impatient with El-Hajj and decided to form the Revolutionary Committee of Unity and Action on the 30th of March 1954. During May and June 1954, they decided that Algeria would be split into 5 areas. Ben Mhidi was assigned Zone 5, the Oran region in western Algeria. Larbi Ben Mhidi and 5 other members of the CRUA approved the transformation, thus giving birth to the National Liberation Front and the National Liberation Army. At a meeting at the Climat de France House overlooking Bab el-Oued, the FLN decided to launch an insurrection which broke out in the early morning of the 1st of November 1954 and quickly escalated into the Algerian War of Liberation. The outbreak soon became known as Toussaint Rouge, or Red All Saints' Day, as it coincided with the Catholic festival. The rebellion was conducted internally by Ben Mhidi, Tidouche Mourad, Rabih Bitat, Karim Belqasem, Mohamed Boudiaf, and Mustafa Ben Boulaid, while 3 other members, namely Hossein Ait Ahmed, Ahmed Ben Billah, and Mohammed Khaydar, were operating externally in Cairo. They later became known as the Men of November. Ben Mhidi was designated in the Wilaya of Oran, as we said. However, he encountered exceptional difficulties as the area had been recently struck by an earthquake and arms that were promised had not been given. On the 2nd of November 1955, Ben Mhidi took command of the Zone Autonome of Algiers and appointed Yassif Saadi as his aide. On the 25th of June 1956, a FLN track authored by Ben Mhidi and Abban Ramdan declared all executions of fighters would be followed by retaliation. For each FLN soldier guillotined, 100 Frenchmen will be cut down. Larbi Ben Mhidi is one of the 6 founding members of the National Liberation Front known as FLN that launched an armed revolt throughout Algeria and issued a proclamation calling for a sovereign Algerian state. Ben Mhidi initially commanded the region of Oran. He played a major role at the FLN's Soumam conference in August 1956. In August 1956, Ben Mhidi handed over Oran to Abdel Hafid Boussoum and assumed command in Algiers, as he was given the responsibility after the election for launching the Battle of Algiers. In January 1957, he suggested the idea of an insurrectional strike. It took place on the 28th of January 1957. It caught the attention of the world and the United Nations. Ben Mhidi did not stay longer than 2 days in each hideout in the Kasbah with his companions, as 2,000 paratroopers were searching for FLN members. Ben Mhidi was a strong believer that the revolution should be directed by internal rather than external revolutionaries. Larbi Ben Mhidi was captured by the French paratroopers in February 1957 during the Battle of Algiers. It is said that while he was tortured, he repeated to his torturers, "We will win because we represent the forces of the bright future, while you will be defeated because you want to stop the course of history that will take you away in its race, and because you are attached to the dirty colonial past that is meant to disappear." He will be cowardly executed by the French forces. In the year 2000, retired French General Ossares admitted torturing Algerian fighters and that Ben Mhidi was executed while in custody. However, the exact truth regarding his death remains a mystery to this day. Ben Mhidi is considered to be a national hero in Algeria and is considered to be a symbol of the revolution that brought an end to French colonialism.